let's be honest. Have you ever tried to break a bad habit only to find yourself right back where you started a few weeks later? Yeah, me too. Today, we're going to talk about a system for change that's, well, it's totally different from everything you've probably heard before. It's simple, it's powerful, and it starts with a step so incredibly small, you might actually laugh. So, let's get into it. I mean, really, why is it so hard? We get this burst of motivation, right? We start a new diet, a new workout plan, we're all in for a little while. We try to fight this war against years, maybe decades of habits in just a few weeks. But then, life happens. Stress piles on, we get busy, and boom, we're right back to our old ways. It's just such a frustrating cycle. And this is the voice of defeat. It's that little voice in your head that says, see, I told you so. It's the moment we start to believe our bad habits are just part of who we are. And this is exactly where we meet a man named Christopher. He'd completely bought into the story until one day, a really humiliating moment forced him to face the truth. So meet Christopher. He's 40 years old, weighing in at 142 kilos, and he's just exhausted. He was basically living a life where he was slowly dying. He worked hard for his family, put in long hours, but he'd completely forgotten that he even had a body that needed care. His whole life was this blur of fast food, stress, and collapsing on the couch, just too tired to actually live. The real pain for him wasn't the number on the scale. It was seeing the disappointment in his daughter's eyes when she finally stopped asking him to come outside and play. But the breaking point, oh man, it came when he bent down to pick up a ball for his son, and he literally couldn't get back up. He was stuck. Lying there in his neighbor's flower bed, he had this horrifying realization. The memory he was building for his kids was that their father was weak. So, completely desperate, Christopher seeks help and gets referred to a Dr. Yamamoto. But this wasn't your typical doctor's office. It was calm, minimalist, and Dr. Yamamoto himself seemed more like a wise monk than a physician. He wasn't there to write a prescription for pills, he was there to prescribe a whole new philosophy. Christopher tells him his whole history, every failed diet, every abandoned workout plan, and after listening patiently, Dr. Yamamoto says this: "You failed because you tried to win a 40-year war in a 2-month battle." Just let that sink in. Christopher's body, his mind, had spent 40 years building these habits. The idea that he could just erase all of that with a short, intense burst of willpower, it was always destined to fail. So Dr. Yamamoto proposed a change. But it was a change so ridiculously tiny, so seemingly pointless, that Christopher honestly almost laughed out loud. But he was at rock bottom. He was ready to try anything. That's it. That was the entire prescription. Every single morning, before he did anything else, he had to drink 1 glass of water. No other changes. He could keep eating pizza, keep sitting on the couch. Christopher was so confused, maybe even a little annoyed. How on earth was 1 glass of water going to help him lose 50 kilos? But here's the genius of it. Dr. Yamamoto explained the principle behind the water, a Japanese philosophy called Kaizen. Kaizen is all about continuous improvement through microscopic changes. The goal isn't perfection tomorrow. It's just to be 1% better than you were today. The glass of water wasn't about hydration. It was about proving to himself that he could keep one tiny promise. This was the first brick in a new foundation. And get this is the magic of Kaizen. If you improve by just 1% every single day, you don't end up 365% better at the end of the year. Because of compounding, you actually end up a staggering 3,778% better. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Those tiny little changes, they build on each other and lead to these massive exponential results. So Christopher drank that glass of water every day for 2 straight weeks. He kept his promise. And with that one small victory under his belt, he was finally ready to build on it. The system started to grow, but incredibly slowly. The next step was to only put half the usual amount of food on his plate and then wait 20 minutes before even thinking about seconds. After that, a simple walk to his mailbox and back. Each step was so small that it felt impossible to fail, but together they started this incredible chain reaction of positive change. That half-a-plate rule? Well, it was actually a clever way of teaching him another principle, hara hachibu. It's this Okinawan idea of eating only until you're about 80% full. See, by waiting those 20 minutes, he was giving his stomach enough time to send the "I'm full" signal to his brain. And he discovered that most of the time, he wasn't even hungry for seconds. He was just used to eating until he was stuffed. So then, Dr. Yamamoto asked Christopher the most important question: why are you doing all this? And the answer wasn't to lose weight. The real answer was, I want to see my kids grow up. I want to walk my daughter down the aisle. That became his ikigai, his reason for living. This purpose, this deep-seated why, became the fuel that would keep him going long after motivation faded. Of course, no journey is a straight line. 3 months in, Christopher had already lost 14 kilos. He was feeling great. But then, Thanksgiving happened. You know how it is. Family, a massive feast, social pressure. He totally broke his streak, ate until he felt sick, and was just crushed with defeat, ready to quit all over again. When he told Dr. Yamamoto what happened, expecting a lecture, this was the response. And it's so powerful. This was a complete reframing of what failure even means. One bad day doesn't erase 90 good ones. The goal was never to be perfect. The goal was to just keep moving forward, especially after a stumble. So the doctor introduced him to 2 more incredible ideas. First, wabi-sabi, which is all about finding beauty in imperfection. This gave him permission to be human, to have compassion for his own slip-ups. And second, gambaru, which is all about perseverance. That was the strength he showed by getting up the very next morning and drinking his glass of water, even when he really, really didn't want to. So now, with all of these tools, Christopher wasn't trying to be perfect anymore. He was just trying to be consistent. And over the months, something really deep started to change. The effort, it just kind of faded away, and a whole new identity started to emerge. And this, right here, this is the most important shift of all. He stopped being a fat guy trying to lose weight. Instead, he just became a guy who takes care of himself. See the difference? The old identity was temporary and based on effort. The new one was about who he was. An identity is permanent. His healthy behaviors just became automatic. So here it is, the whole system in one place. You've got ikigai, that's your why, your deep reason. Kaizen is your how, those microscopic steps. Hara Hachibu teaches you moderation. Wabi-sabi gives you self-compassion when you mess up. And gambaru gives you the strength to get back on track. And the result of all this? Over 18 months, Christopher lost 52 kilos. 52! But honestly, the weight loss was just a side effect. The real transformation was the man he became, a healthy, strong, and present father and husband. Christopher's story is amazing, but it proves that this system can work for literally anyone. It doesn't matter if you want to change your health, your career, your finances, or your relationships. The principles are exactly the same. This isn't about changing fast. It's about changing forever. And the reason this whole thing works is because it's based on how our brains are actually wired. These tiny, microscopic changes, they fly under the radar of our brain's resistance. They build behavior into identity, which makes it automatic. And it doesn't rely on willpower, which we all know runs out. It relies on consistency, which is so much more powerful than short bursts of intensity. So this all leaves us with one final question for you. Forget about the huge, massive goal for just a second. What is the absolute smallest possible step you can take tomorrow to move in the right direction? What is your glass of water? Because making and keeping that one tiny promise to yourself, well, that's not just the beginning of a new habit. It's the beginning of a new you.